What's up, you guys? So we are back with Sean Gold. Some of you may remember him from being on our channel previously. He is the author of the ABCs of Disabilities, which is a children's book. And if you're not familiar with Sean, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a young Black gay author with a disability in St. Louis, Missouri. He is a public speaker, an advocate for people with disabilities, former president of the disability-owned nonprofit Coalition for Truth and Independence, media director for Festibility, board member of St. Louis Publishers Association, and host of the YouTube series Crippled by Culture. Sean's faith, family, and friends are the most important things in his life. His disability is cerebral palsy, and he has a tracheostomy breathing tube since he was 1.5 years old. Sean is nonverbal, but as you can tell, it doesn't get in the way of his love for creative writing and storytelling, hence his new book, The ABCs of Disability. So how are you doing today, Sean? And for you guys watching, the way this is going to work is he is going to be typing, like I'm chatting with him, he's going to be typing his responses, and I will let you know what he is saying. All right, so he said he's doing good, and he asked me how I am doing. I am doing great. I am doing great. I have a few questions for him. So let's go ahead and get into the questions. My first question for him is, what inspired you to write the ABCs of Disabilities? And he has pre-written his answers so this can flow smoothly. And when I asked him this question, his answer was, I wanted to write this book so that kids everywhere can get exposed to the disabled community as early as possible in an accessible and inclusive way. My book is an alphabet book for children and adults with and without disabilities to teach about their disabled peers, family members, and friends in a digestible way. For the past 3 years, I've been working tirelessly on an alphabet book called The ABCs of Disabilities, which is set to release on September 17th. It includes 26 terms from A to Z that parents, guardians, grandparents, and teachers can read to the children to help them learn how to understand and empathize with their friends in inclusive ways. I would love to see this book be shared everywhere, and I would definitely come to read to the students upon request in schools, libraries, wherever. All right, so my next question for him was, can you tell us about the creative process behind the book's compassionate writing and fun illustrations? It's a really good book. You guys have to see it. He said, I actually began writing this book 2 months after my self-published debut book, Pure Love or Is It, was released in March of 2021. By the end of May, I had already started on it. I finished the first draft in August, and by September, I had met with my project management team at Edit Right. We applied to many grants to cover the illustrations costs for the illustrators I decided on. Thankfully, we finally got a huge grant to cover the illustrations and typewriting costs. Shout out to RAC, RACSTL, aka the Regional Arts Center of St. Louis, for my grant to pay for the illustrations with the illustrators at Pretend Friends. I couldn't have done it without them. My next question was, how did your own experiences with cerebral palsy influence the themes and messages in the book? And he said, I think I learned how much I needed this book as a kid myself. Growing up, I didn't see a lot of representation in disability when it came to media. I'm talking about books, movies, TV shows, gaming, and other entertainment. I only knew about Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles, who are both Black disabled musicians. So my view on disability representation was limited. There was a boy who was a wheelchair user in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but that was it. This book is a gift to my younger self to finally have a story to relate to. That's awesome. And I also asked him, what challenges did you face while writing and publishing the ABCs of Disability, and how did you overcome them? And he said funding for the illustrations was definitely the hardest part. We spent the first 2 years just working on grants, and then for the other aspects, I eventually had to use my own funds. Self-publishing means that I own all the rights and everything is decided by me, but I also pay for everything on my own. As hard as the journey has been, I feel like God is about to take my message and career so much further with this book. Many times I thought about giving up because doing a children's book independently as a self-published author and not deciding to go the traditional publishing route took so much money. So I don't have any hesitation that God is going to surprise me. I don't think I'm ready for it. I also asked him, how do you hope this book will impact young readers, both disabled and non-disabled? And he said, I want this book to help become the new way of teaching disability inclusion from a young age. One thing that I dislike about the education system is the false narrative that segregation is over completely. That's false. There was only a shift in where it went from segregation by race to segregation by ability. The self-contained classes that are filled with disabled and chronically ill students usually stay in the same class all day long, except for lunchtime and certain electives. That's harmful for all students, and there's nothing beneficial about it other than being able to continue the barriers in society that keep the disabled and non-disabled separated and at a huge disadvantage. I think that able-bodied or non-disabled children are taught from early ages to ignore the disabled children because they usually just stare. They are told to just look away from us instead of coming to say hi. Once in elementary and middle school, we are segregated. By the time high school comes, they think that avoiding us is respectful when in actuality it's harmful. So in this book, for the letter Q, I instantly knew what I had to say. Asking questions is a big part of growing and learning. When you see someone with a disability, don't stare. You can say hello like you would to anyone else. And if you have a question, that's okay. Just be polite and first get their permission to ask it, then go ahead. This is in hopes of breaking the mentality of the way kids were taught when I was growing up and prior to me to be able to interact with others who are different from them. So I also asked him, can you share a bit about your role and experiences as the former president of the disability-owned nonprofit Coalition for Truth and Independence? And he said CTI, the acronym, is a nonprofit that advocates for accessibility around St. Louis. We have advocated for a more accessible city and better policies for car ride, which always gives us problems as the primary transportation for disabled people. So the company takes advantage of that by lowering their wait times from 5 minutes to, I think, 1 to 2 minutes. That definitely isn't enough time, which causes us to always have to demand more inclusive and fair policies in the company. So I guess just like, Uber, when Uber, they only wait around for a certain time, like I think Uber is like 5 minutes. So this transportation company um, has lowered their time to 1 to 2 minutes, which is harmful. Like when they're picking up someone who's disabled, it makes everything more difficult. Is that correct? Okay, I can understand that. I also asked Sean, how has your work as a public speaker and advocate for people with disabilities shaped your writing and storytelling? And he said, I've been public speaking for nearly 10 years now since high school, professionally for 5, and I'm now partnered with a speakers agency called Collective Speakers. Amazing celebrities like Taraji P. Henson, Common, Ali Stroker, and so many others are with them. You can go to the website to request me for virtual events or email Sean Lawton, same first name, is same spelling as him, at Sean@collectivespeakers.com. Speaking has shaped my writing in so many ways, and it has made me a stronger storyteller. I always include my life experiences in my speeches related to the topic. My goal is no matter what my book will be about, I must place one character with some type of disability, even if this character is irrelevant to the story. True representation isn't just having a disabled person as the main character or antagonist going into major detail about the disability. It's also having us as a side character with the disability being known, and that's the extent of where I write about it. My books are my escape from my life as a disabled person, and I don't have any other way to do that. So I refuse to write any type of memoir or autobiography because to me, that's invading the only space where I don't have to focus on my disability. So with that, I would just ask, do you use like AI or anything? Like when you talk about like your escape, writing is your escape, do you incorporate AI or anything like that into your process? Okay. And he said technically, yes, AI is his voice for his speeches. Okay. Okay. I have a AI voice too. Um, so my next question was, what message do you hope to convey to parents and educators through the ABCs of disability? And he said, kids can understand more things than we think. Please take the time to explain what differences are in terms of abilities and different kinds of people. Oftentimes, they only need simple, short answers, and it's usually the adults who are afraid of overcomplicating things. As a perfect example, my niece is 2 years old and she knows that I'm different and that I have a breathing tube. She's not interested in long, complicated answers. She doesn't understand how I communicate fully just yet, but she's learning. That makes sense. Okay, so I also asked him, how do you balance your various roles, including being the media director of Festability and board member of the St. Louis Publishers Association with your writing career? And he said, I definitely overwork myself, and my friends are always yelling at me to take a real break. There's just no time to do it. It all just intertwines together, and I enter everything I have to do in my phone calendar and Google Calendar. I can't physically write down anything clear enough to understand even my own writing. So I rely on texting and technology for basically everything. I have to say, I get when people complain about everything being online and virtual, but I wouldn't be able to have any of these jobs, independence, or any way to communicate at all without having my phone or computer. When people complain about these things or talk about taking a social media break, that within itself is a privilege that I don't have. Even complaining about Zoom calls is a privilege, especially when disabled people have had the need for things like this to exist since the beginning of the internet being available to the public. Um, yeah, so you can just chime in if you have anything else you want to add to that. But my next question was, can you tell us more about your YouTube series, Crippled by Culture, and how it complements your advocacy work? And this is where we know Sean from Crippled by Culture. We talked about that on my YouTube channel before. And they said one way that I encourage people to challenge their views about the disabled and chronically ill communities through my podcast, Crippled by Culture. Crippled by Culture is a YouTube podcast that discusses everything in life and relates it to the disabled and chronically ill community, celebrating the disability community through education, empowerment, unity, and intersectionality. We strongly hold anti-racist, anti-patriarchy, anti-cis heteronormativity, queer affirming, and absolutely anti-ableist values. I want you to share your experiences with us and the world, whether you want to talk about music, advocacy, your favorite genres, medical trauma, or the education system. I will talk to you about your passion from a disability lens. The first season had a wide range of topics from school accommodations to dancing to human trafficking. I was able to interview Laki, who is a Black blind singer and songwriter, and the former co-host of The Real Jeannie Mai. The season 2 finale was another celebrity who's now my friend. Oh, Duran Bernard. Y'all know Duran. He's an R&B singer. Also, thank you for being, oh, you thank me. Thank me for being on the first season too. You're welcome. Thank you. I also asked, how have your faith, family, and friends supported you throughout your journey as an author and advocate? And he said, it's everything that keeps me grounded. This past year has been extremely difficult as we lost my aunt last year in October. Leaning on my friends and family has been everything for me. No, it wasn't what we were praying or hoping for, but I know she's with God and my grandma, who we lost 2 years prior. I put a dedication to them at the end of the book on the copyright page. The journey in this decade has been very complicated and difficult, but I'm pushing forward. So I also asked, what advice would you give to other young disabled individuals who aspire to pursue creative careers in writing or public speaking? Just keep writing. And he said, just keep writing and focusing on perfecting your craft to the best that it can be. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for watching. You can reach out to Sean. I'll put a link to his contact information below. Bye, you guys.